My ex lied to me about being divorced, so I ruined his reputation, marriage and job in one blow. When I was a naive 24 years old, met a charming and very smart and way older man. We call him Jake for the story. His sister is Dana and I'm Gina. Now to the story. Jake was 42, recently divorced, or so he told me, and got a kid that he would see the weekends. We meet online through a poetry website where both of us used to write. He was very aloof and stern on his comments and not very popular on the website because he used to always come off like an arrogant prick, but I really liked his poems regardless of his personality, and that's how it began. I commented on one and he instantly PM'd back praising my writing and asked me if we could collaborate on a duet together. I've already done it 1,000 times with a few friends and people on the site that I respected, so I said sure. So long story short, we met on Hotmail Messenger. This was nearly 11 years ago, kids, so no WhatsApp, although we did chat on FB too. This will come relevant later. Long story short, we instantly connected. He was funny, handsome and really sweet underneath all his bravado. And his dark sense of humor was right up my alley. We spent months pulling all-nighters just talking and writing together. Not humble bragging, but I was pretty popular on the site because I won a few awards, so, by association, he became popular too. People started to reading Jake's poems and commented, and obviously he got a huge head about it, but I digress. Our relationship became more serious after he confessed that he was falling for me and I was smitten. So I went along with it. We talked about my recent breakup and he assured me that he would never lie to me because of course he used that, which of his ex-wife cheat on him, and he was devastated until he met me. I was shocked for how bad her ex was but assured him that I was all in. And I meant that. One important detail about our turbulent romance is that he was in South America, he's from there, and I was still living in Italy, in my hometown. So, after almost 2 years of excuses for how tied up on work he was, I decided to surprise him with a visit. I bought my ticket and it literally was like a dream. He picked me up, we kiss, hug, and he took me to his beach house, which would have been my first red flag, but I was dumb, young and in love. Saying that it would be so much easier and fun for me doing touristy stuff on a beach port than staying in his suburbs house with no car. Because I told him in such a short notice that he didn't have the time nor the means to take time off, which again blatant lie because he was one of the partners of the company, but again, I bought it and off I went on my own almost for the entire week that I was there. He only spent one night with me and the rest of the week just picked me up from whatever it was that I ended up wandering, and we hang out for a few hours, have sex, and then he just drops me off on the house. I know that most of you are thinking, come on OP, just get your head out off your arse and realize what a bunch of BS that is. And believe me, now writing this I realized how much of an idiot I was. But it gets better. The day before I have to get back to Italy, he took me to dinner. With his 6-year-old son and his sister. I was super happy to meet his family and son, but got caught off guard when he just introduced me as his friend from Italy dropping on town for tourist. Her sister was super sweet, albeit a bit awkward, and his son was adorable. We ate, talked, and off we went. He picked me up first thing in the morning and dropped me off in the airport. Now that you got the full story, I'll get to the good part. 2 days later, and still a bit jet-lagged, I got a very interesting email. From his sister Dana. Her email was short and very simple. Dear Gina, I know that you might think I was weird and maybe a bit rude when we met, but it was only because I was tricked by Jay to join the dinner with his kid. He never mentioned that you guys were dating, but after confronting Jake, he confessed and begged not to tell anyone or his marriage will be ruined. But you're such a sweet and young girl that doesn't deserve his deceive. Jake is still married and never left their home. Don't take just my word for it. And Dana sent me pictures of his real FB profile and surprise. The perfect little family. I thanked her and shut down my computer. I was devastated. I really thought Jake was the love of my life and was seriously considering moving there. I spent all night crying and drinking wine until I get myself the worst migraine. But the heartbreak lasted about 12 hours. At 4 a.m. I got up, shower, make a pot of fresh coffee and started planning my revenge. I was hurt, yes, but also so angry that he not only deceived me, but dragged his sister and his innocent child in his lie. I was at the other side of the world and I didn't have the money to pay someone to kick his arse or egg his car. But as my Sicilian father would said to me, if someone slaps you, don't turn the other cheek, cut off their fucking hand. And so I did. Cue my sweet revenge. I sat down on my desk and turned on the computer and log in his Hotmail. I didn't have the password, but I knew him well enough to answer his 3 security questions on the section forgot password. 1, 2, 3 bum baby. I'm in and holy shit. This arrogant piece of human crap was not only dating me, but other 2 girls. I quickly logged onto his FB too because he had everything linked, the naivety, so I quickly changed all his passwords to I'm a prick and discovered that his personal email was also connected to his work account. I dug through his emails for 2 hours, this idiot never erased anything so he had more than 5,000 emails. Until I found something very interesting, the girls he was also seeing and their very hot email exchanges. Dick pics included. So what did I do? You guessed. I crafted a very lengthy and explicit email with pics and chat logs attached confessing to Jake's wife, posting as him obviously, begging for forgiveness and declaring how much of shit person I was, and as a proof of my willingness to change and transparency was sending this email to the girls too. But that I did it only because I was a closeted gay and thought that being a player would help me forget how much I really loved guys. That I was sick of pretending and hoped she could move on and maybe be friends. But not only to them. I copied his entire list of contacts, including the CEO and partners of the company he worked, his parents and of course. This email was perfection. All the pictures and chats, myself included, he ever exchanged with any other women. I copied myself on the list obviously as a countermeasure and move on to the part 2 of my plan. I changed all of his FB and declaring that I was so relieved that people finally knew who was I. The pride flag was his new wall picture and his profile picture was a photoshopped picture of 2 guys kissing. I created 5 different accounts on gay websites with all his info, included his phone number and started to chat with a bunch of guys until out of nowhere, this guy sent me, oh better yet, he sent Jake a message. Tony was his old uni friend that had always been secretly lusting for him for years, and although I felt bad for this later, I set up a date. Part 3 of my plan. A week after this massive internet blowout and his family and friends angrily calling him all sorts of names and getting fired because his bosses didn't want the bad press. So Jake, trying to make amends with his family and friends, make a barbecue for his birthday. But I would have paid 1 year worth of salary just to see his face and his guests when in the middle of their celebration, Tony appeared with a bottle of champagne and a bag full of lube and sex toys to celebrate privately as I asked. Apparently there was a huge fight and everyone left Jake, flustered and angry. Crying because some psycho wanted to ruin his life. I blocked him and forgot about everything until 6 months ago when he out of the blue sent me a message on Instagram asking me why I disappear and didn't support him when he was on his lowest. And oh boy, the satisfaction I felt when I only replied back, sorry Jake, but I think everything you got was karma for all the lies and time wasted you feed me. Good luck, oh, and by the way, it was always me. I then blocked him and made my account private. Jake did try to call a few mutual friends to try to get them to give him my number, but they ignore him. They also got the infamous email. So yeah. I got my revenge and I was with every single hour. I know. I'm effin' petty. Story 2. Narcissist boss and complicit company get what they deserve. A few years ago, I quit my career in the tech industry. This was after the company I was working for went public and everything went downhill. I was sick of making money for the rich and needed some time to really live life. I proceeded to spend a few months traveling, working on home projects and really doing whatever the hell I wanted. One day, about 4 months into my freedom, I was having lunch with my best friend and she told me you need to stop being lazy and get a job. She had recently been hired at a company in the construction industry and mentioned there was an opening. The opening was doing something I had zero experience in, but a change of career was appealing. I applied and promptly was given a phone interview. I spent a little time researching everything about this position and after many interviews managed to fake my way in. Turns out this position was wildly different from anything I had done before. It taxed me in ways I had never experienced. Not only was my job stressful, my boss turned into a nightmare. He had worked there since the company was founded. He was a part of the Good OL Boys Club. Now, for everyone that doesn't know, the construction industry has virtually zero HR. This was close to $1 billion company and was still the same way. My boss was a narcissist, sexist, liar, and downright jerk. Weirdly, most of that was directed towards others and not me. My best friend was one person that took the brunt of it. It killed me to hear what he would say to her. All of this took its toll on me. New Year's Day. About 3 months into my employment, January 1st hit. I wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning with pain in my chest and my head racing a million miles an hour. Luckily, my roommate was a paramedic and happened to be home. I rush over to her room and yell that I think I'm having a heart attack. She comes out, takes my vitals, asks some questions, and determines I am most likely having a panic attack. Sure enough, I calm down and manage to not die. I had never had a panic attack up until then. Throughout the following week, I continued to have flare-ups of chest pain and heart palpitations. I figure something could really be wrong, so I go to my doctor. He does a few tests and determines it's most likely some acid reflux. He prescribes some meds and the following week is better. Then, one night when heading home from dinner with my sister, boom, I get rear-ended at a stoplight by a drunk driver. No skid marks. Didn't even attempt to stop. I felt a bit of tightness in my back, so decide to go get checked out at the hospital to be safe. I get there and they take my vitals. My blood pressure was on the moon. Like 180/100. They take it about an hour later and it's still high. They recommend I go see my doctor again. The next couple weeks waiting for my doctor appointment is hell. I am having daily panic attacks, chest pain, trouble breathing, massive fatigue. The whole gambit. Finally get to the day of my appointment, let my doctor know what's going on, and he determines I should go see a few different specialists and get all kinds of tests done to be safe. Throughout the next couple months and have everything poked and prodded. Because of the amount of tests that needed to be done, I missed a good bit of work. This turned my boss on me. He constantly complained about me being gone. All the while not an ounce of work was dropped. With my tech background, I also took it upon myself to start making reports and collecting data that I would present to him on ways of improving the department and company. I later found out he would take these reports, which at times could save the company hundreds of thousands to potentially millions of dollars, and present them as his own to the owner. This made me furious and didn't help with my physical issues. However, slowly I made it through all of the prescribed tests and they couldn't find anything physically wrong with me. Turns out, all of the issues were caused by stress and anxiety. Something I had never had an issue with before. My doctor referred me to an amazing counselor that helped me learn how to manage the problems I was facing and get back to a reasonable state of mind. Although, this never got to an acceptable level because of my boss. I started to email HR with my issues with him and things I have witnessed with others. Most of this was met with unwillingness to help in any way. Cue the turning point. A dear coworker whom everyone loved and respected decided to quit out of nowhere. She too worked under my boss. In her exit interview, she gave the sole reason for quitting as my boss. She finally hit her breaking point and enough was enough. However, because she was so well liked, this prompted some questions from the owner and other senior management. They wanted to know why my boss was the reason for her leaving. They had HR set up a meeting with us in the department and our boss to go over our issues with him. We all were excited to finally, hopefully, get the people that matter to listen. We have the meeting and we all lay out the issues with our boss and give a multitude of examples. I went a bit overboard and had an entire presentation. Turns out this was all a charade to cover my boss's ass. He was prescribed some management counseling, which I'm pretty sure he never did, and things continued on their merry way. However, now, with the knowledge my boss had of our issues with him, he turned the volume up to 11. The constant berating, yelling, write-ups came flowing out. It got bad enough that I started to secretly record every meeting with him. I saved every single email and documented every interaction with him. I continued to push for help from HR, but again, his status in the company kept him immune from any response. Thankfully, throughout all of this, I managed to keep my mental health in check thanks to my counselor's tools. I once again get sick. Yes. I get sick, but this time it's with a real cold and lasts a few days. All of which covered by government-mandated sick time. I come back to work and not even a week goes by and I get called into my boss's office with other senior management. I knew this wasn't good. My boss lets me know that they are firing me for attendance. I am gobsmacked. I have never been fired in my life, and I know I was an asset to the company's success. I didn't slack off, I didn't miss deadlines. The attendance excuse appeared to just be what my boss thought would be easiest to get rid of me with. Now, I live in an at-will state. You can be fired for basically any reason except for a bad one. They presented me with a meager 2-week pay severance. I declined signing it, packed my stuff up and left. I knew the whole situation didn't feel right, especially because I was familiar with the recent state laws that passed about sick time and an employer not being legally allowed to fire you for using it. Because of this, I went to my mom, who's been in the law field her entire life, and got a referral for an employment law attorney. Things start to look up. The day of my appointment with the employment law attorney couldn't come quick enough. I had gathered everything I had collected from my time at the company and presented it to him. The recordings on my phone, the emails, the documented interactions, everything. After showing the attorney, he pushes back from his desk and says, "Holy shit. You have a hell of a case here. They messed up bad." A wave of relief flows over my entire body. Me thinking the only blatant violation was firing me for using sick time, I was taken aback when he proceeded to explain that the company made 4 huge violations. The sick time violation not even being anywhere near the top of the list. Some big things I learned from him. The meeting I had with my boss, HR, and the rest of the department where we went over all of our issues with him was a key piece of evidence for one of their biggest violations. I learned this type of meeting is considered protected concerted activity and covered under the National Labor Relations Act. The Act protects against retaliation for having this kind of meeting. According to my lawyer, all of my boss's activities following that meeting can be considered retaliation. When it comes to health issues and how they affect you at your workplace, make sure you document every interaction with your employer. It's important to show that you made an effort to let them know of your complications and how they may affect you at your workplace. I sent countless emails to HR letting them know of my mental health issues, and their failure to make accommodations was a violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Having recordings and documentation on how your employer interacts differently with females and males is important to prove a violation of the Civil Rights Act. After all of this, the lawyer stated I had 3 options. Option 1, I could retain him and we could file a lawsuit. He explained that would be expensive and take a lot of time. However, would most likely result in a good amount of money. Option 2, I could file claims with all of the departments that cover the violated acts. He explained that some of these departments can take years to investigate and process the claims. However, for some of them, especially the violation of the National Labor and Relations Act, the investigation can be absolute hell on the employer. This would probably be the biggest FU to the employer. Option 3, I go back by myself and renegotiate the severance. This being the quickest and easiest option. This option sounded very appealing. I really didn't want to drag this out for multiple years. I told the lawyer that option 3 is most likely my choice, and he mentioned that I should probably start negotiations at 9 months of severance and full benefits. After consulting with people close to me, I decided to go with option 3. I met with HR and senior management, explained that I consulted with an employment law attorney, stated all of the acts that he feels they violated, and asked for 9 months of severance. After a couple weeks negotiating with their attorney, we settled on 6 months of severance with full benefits. It's been a few years since this has happened, and it still makes me feel overwhelmingly happy thinking about it. In the end, I found an absolutely amazing job in the same industry. My ex-boss ended up being moved to a position that wasn't in management. And hopefully, nobody will ever have to go through what I and others went through at that company again.